Hello, everyone. Today is Thursday, June 9th, and this is the Cluster API Provider Azure office hours. Cluster API Provider Azure is a subproject of SIG Cluster Lifecycle. As always, please make sure that you're adhering to the CNCF Code of Conduct. And if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand, and we'll make sure you get a chance to talk. The agenda is below. I'll share the link in the chat. If anyone wants to add anything, go for it. In order to have edit access, you need to join the SIG Cluster Lifecycle mailing list. And let's see, let's get started. First off, do we have anyone here who's new to the meeting and just wants to say hi or introduce themselves? So go for it.
Hey, I can't recall if I actually have introduced myself before, but I'm Josh Farrow with VMware. I'm working alongside Ashutosh on CAPZ. So great to meet you.
Hi, Josh. Yeah, we've interacted on Slack, I believe. Nice to meet you. Anyone else? All right. Let's get started on the open discussion then. Let's see. Out of tree CSI migration, Ashutosh, go for it.
Hi, so I was working on this PR and then left out in the middle, but I got a feedback that we want to kind of install out of tree CSI drivers for all the flares so that we test maybe Windows node or other Linux nodes. So that makes sense. But I have a question, like, does this mean that for the base flavor that we have, we just put all the flags that is required to use the out of tree CSI migration? Or is there anything apart from that that we need to do? So I and Jack were having some conversation on Slack. Hopefully Jack is here.
Jack is
Hi, Extra.
Hi, Jack.
I haven't heard anything controversial in what you said. That all makes perfect sense what you're saying so far.
Let me repeat it. So it's popping, my internet is unstable. I don't know why. So I'm asking, like, for this CSI migration, I had already raised a WIP PR. So I was wondering, apart from putting the required flags, for example, on QBDM control plane and other components to enable out of tree CSI driver, is there anything extra that we need to do in that PR, or that should work?
I haven't taken a close look at the current CSI implementation. Cecile, are there existing like CSI template injections that would need to be rolled back and replaced with this?
No.
Or are we just basically not testing this at all right now? This is a
Sure.
gap.
Right
I
now.
did it manually, like whatever I wanted to do. So maybe I'll give it a try on those lines and see if it works. So, but I do have a question. Like, let's say we wanted to do the way I was doing. So, do you mind if I share my screen and ask a couple of questions on that?
Sure, go ahead. Let's see. Let me give you permission. Okay, go ahead.
Just a second. One moment. Is my screen visible?
Yes, we can see GitHub.
So, so I can see that inside test. Where is this config? So this Azure dev.yaml. So why is this thing required? Like, I try to understand it. Like, what does this do?
We're not seeing your screen move. It's static.
I can see it.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's just me then.
I can't. Weird.
All right, Ashutosh and myself, we can just proceed.
My
Everybody else
screen is
stand by.
paused. It's saying.
You'll have to describe it to us.
Let me redo it once more. Just. Is it visible now?
Now I said yes. Or go
I
on.
can see it now.
Yes.
Yeah. So this there is config in the CI. Like Jack did one PR for external cloud provider. So I wanted to understand: are these YAMLs auto-generated, or do we write that and put it in here? Like there is one cluster template, Prow external cloud. And then we have one more like cluster template external cloud provider. So how are these two different?
I would be delighted to do a quick ad hoc session because it's sort of complicated, but I could if we had time in this. Is this an hour slot, this meeting?
Sure, I'll take it. At that.
If we want to like push this to the back of the queue, and then with the remaining time, I can just go through and demonstrate some of how this works.
Sure, makes sense.
Sounds
Does
good.
that sound good, Cecile?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so hang tight, Ashutosh. And I also have a half hour after this slot if you do as well. I know you're in plus
Yeah.
a GMT +1 or GMT. So
Yeah, I'm
keep going.
India time zone. Yeah, sure.
India, okay, so GMT +N.
Yeah, no problem. I'll stick it for half an hour. Thanks.
Cool. Yeah. So yeah, let's circle back to this one. But yeah, thanks for looking into that, Ashutosh. You had another topic on here about workload identity. Do you want to talk about that now?
Yeah, so I was just exploring it the last day, and just wanted to understand, is there any, so this workload identity thing that is there in this GitHub repo? I see like there is no SDK for that, but this AAD identity is a bit different. Like it works on that custom resources. So like what's the way to, like, I know I could see the code in scope where we are using in the scope package where we are using AAD pod identity and all those things. So I suppose those are the places where we may probably want to make the change. But so what would be the right way? I'm like just started on this one, so I'm very new to Azure Active Directory. So any suggestions on that?
So actually, Danny, who's here, Danny and I actually went through a workload identity tutorial recently because we were trying to figure out how it works so we could integrate it with the AZ CAPI CLI extension that he's working on. So I would say that's probably the best way to get started to understand a little bit what's required. They have really good documentation. If you go in the workload identity page, there's a website. And then I think I recommend going through the quick start and going through the steps once manually so you can understand what exactly needs to be set up. And then we'll
Sure.
want CAPZ to use. It's going to be very different from how it's working right now with AZ pod identity. Right now, what we're doing is we're creating this Azure cluster identity CRD, and then from that, we're creating the Azure identity one that AZ identity expects. It's no longer using its own CRD, is my understanding, in workload identity. Now it's using a service account, and then we're going to basically add a label to the CAPZ controller, the CAPZ manager, and then that's going to tell a workload identity to that it can use that identity. So I think we'll need to make some changes to the CAPZ deployment itself to add that label. And then we'll probably need the user to do some sort of like setup beforehand to set up that identity because it's a federated identity. I don't think we're going to be able to have all that built into CAPZ, but that's where maybe we can talk about how to like make that easier, like having the extension do that for you or something like that.
Sure.
So what I think we should look into doing maybe is trying to see if there's any way of doing this work without removing AZ pod identity right away, so we can have both side by side and have it maybe behind a feature flag at first. Just because, like, it's a pretty big change. So we don't want this to be breaking behavior for users. And as we like test it out, it would be nice to have the integration without making it required right away.
So one more question following to that. So do we change the UX for this? Like right now using AAD pod identity is like, you reference that in Azure identity. How is the user going to say this? Like, I mean, do we want to say that if you want to use workload, let's say we want to support both for a while, like AAD identity as well as workload identity, and how do we tell CAPC that we have to use workload identity? Like,
I don't have the answer to that right now. Like that's something we have to figure out.
Sure.
It might be good to start with some maybe research POC and then get a proposal started for this.
Sure.
It's pretty significant rework of how things work. We definitely want to keep the multi-tenancy aspect, which lets you have like a cluster in a certain tenant and then another cluster in another tenant living on the same management cluster. So I don't know how exactly that will work with workload identity. I don't know if anyone here on the call has more insight than that, how things work with workload identity, but I assume there will be a component of research. Jack?
Sure.
So are we largely talking about the parts of AAD pod identity that are implemented sort of natively inside CAPC controllers? Or are we simply talking about how to formulate a known working like template solution, template plus Helm or whatever that would get you to that desired state as a cluster administrator?
So what we're talking about right now, and Ashutosh, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what we're talking about is right now we're using AAD pod identity to give an identity to CAPZ in order to create workload clusters, like make Azure API calls that lets it create and reconcile workload clusters.
Right.
AAD pod identity has been deprecated and is now being replaced by Azure Workload Identity, which is another project which also does something similar, but pretty differently. It's a V2, it's a lot more integrated with Kubernetes. And so we want to switch to that model instead. But because it's like the base identity that's used to create things, it's a pretty disruptive change.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So it's from a user perspective, it's kind of a black box.
Yeah.
It would seem that the most sensible high-level approach would be to pick a release cycle to sort of implement this under the hood change in. So say from V1 beta 1 to V1 beta 2 or something, and V1 beta 2, big release statement using workload identity instead of AAD pod identity for that kind of thing. That would make the most sense to me.
Yeah, maybe I'll also give some more time, try to understand, compare, contrast, and then I'll come up with something. And hopefully, I think we should start with a small one-page design document or something like that. That would help. Thank you.
That's great. And if you go through it and you get a good understanding of the differences and all that, I'm sure this audience would really be interested in seeing a little like TLDR. This is what we're going towards and this is what's changing. And that would be very valuable if you want to do that.
Sure. Thanks.
Any questions from anyone on this topic? Okay, I don't see any hands. All right, let's move on to the next one then. Let's see. Matush, community galleries. We can't hear you, or at least I can't hear you. I don't know if anyone else can hear. You're not muted, but your mic's not connected.
How about now?
Yeah, now it's good.
Okay, sorry. Hi everyone. So I've been working on Flutter support for CAPZ for a while now, and the next item on finishing this work, or almost the last one, is the community gallery support. So then we can use the community images, which Flutter will provide to to for the CI. And yeah, I just wanted to, so like, and we, in this PR, we had some discussions around how we do the mapping from the Azure Compute API and the image references to the types which CAPZ uses. And yeah, I just wanted to raise some focus on this PR, and if I can, like, what are the next steps for this, or like what's missing, and yeah, if maybe some reviewers could have a look again, because I think I think we reached the conclusion on all the conversations there, and I think it's like in the mergeable state.
Yeah, thanks. I'll take another look. I know James is also looking at it, and if anyone else has time, please review. This is a pretty big change, but hopefully one we can leverage in the future for all our images. So we should get the UX right as much as possible.
Thank you. Just to, you know, keep the momentum and get it done. Thanks.
Awesome, thanks. Any questions for Mateusz on that one?
Yeah, thanks for sticking with that one. I think the last update looks good to me. I'll review it one more time and verify, but I think, yeah, good, nice work on that. Thanks.
Thanks, James. All right, awesome. Cool. I assume, Danny, you have the next item? Or Matt?
Yes. Hello. I'm sorry. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hey, hello everyone. It is just a quick announcement that we have released the latest version 0.5 for ACCAPI extension. So and then like this is like the latest changes that we have is support for custom templates to bring out your workload clusters and other live features. So please make sure to try it out and give us any feedback that you might have. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Danny. Yeah, if you want to try it out, instructions, I guess, are in the review on this link. And this is really to integrate Cluster API with Azure CLI for the folks that are already used to that interface. But if you're using Cluster CTL and that's working fine for you, feel free to keep doing that. Matt?
Yeah, pardon me. I just wanted to say, maybe there's nobody on this call, but if you know someone who kind of wants to get into CAPZ, this is a real easy way to do it. You know, there's several low-hanging fruit PRs. I forgot the label that we have several needs help PRs that if you know any Python, they'd be really easy to get into. So if you know anybody who's interested in, you know, getting into CAPZ, maybe this is a simple way to get there or to start. Good first issue. We have several good first issue issues that would be really simple to knock off.
Awesome. Thanks for calling that out. Maybe we should link to it in the CAPZ repo as well at some point, just so we're it's findable from there.
I mean, I feel like when we get to more of a release candidate, when we're and we're fairly close, that we might want to consider vectoring people over to the extension from the CAPZ docs in general, once we think it's solid. We could consider it. And then we'll have a lot of CAPZ users who don't understand at all what they're doing, and Jack will be very happy.
All right.
Inside joke there, and
Sorry.
I'll be preparing a riposte to that, Mark, but I don't have one right now.
All right, I think that brings us to the end of the agenda. Anyone have questions about the extension or anything that we've discussed so far? Any general comments, general questions about the code or the repo before we get into a screen sharing session about test templates?
Do we want to check in on the milestone, or are we still kind of on target for one
Thank you for
release at the end of the month?
Thank you for the reminder. Link works. I don't think it works. Oh, it does. Okay, let's see. So we are at 1.4. All right. So these are the things that we are currently tracking as not the things we're committed to, but the things that we would like to see get into the 1.4 release, which we are planning on releasing July 6th. So in a bit less than a month. This is like the estimated date based on last release plus 2 months that we're trying to adopt as release cadence. Let's see. So flat car support, Matusha is working on that. So we talked about community galleries being the last step for that. Out of tree, CSI drivers and cloud providers. So I think Shitosh is working on the CSI driver part of it. Jack, do we still have plans to move the other templates to out of tree cloud provider? Like what should be our timeline for that? Or not right away?
Yeah, good question. I actually suspect it's fairly trivial at this point. For folks who don't have the background, Cecile and I originally took a stab at this sort of back February, March timeline. And because out of tree cloud provider was something that was being delivered inside the template themselves as a cluster resource set, it was really hard to invert all of that YAML from the current. There's one out of tree template, and then every other test is in tree. So the high level goal is to invert that and have the default template be out of tree, and to continue to sort of fall back with a single cluster template or a single cluster test scenario that validates in tree. Now that we're using Helm to install out of tree cloud provider, I think it would be fairly trivial to simply remove all of the cluster resource set definitions from everywhere, and then, have a single template that has the correct configuration, and then have Helm install out of tree cloud provider everywhere. So what is the scope of the end of this due by July 6th? I think we can do this in that time.
Okay, so we'll keep that in there for now.
I think so.
Cool.
Sorry for the long-winded response.
No, thanks for the detail. VMSS Flex, I think it might be fair to move that one out of here. I don't think realistically we're going to be finishing that by, it's sort of at the prototype phase right now, correct?
+1.
Oh, yeah, let me just, I can use the checkbox and move it. Yeah. Oh, this is not to set master, it's to filter. Okay, I'll do that afterwards. Services async. So this one is this is the epic, like the mega issue for all the services. So this one's almost done. I think we have, yeah, we've made some really good progress here. We have tags that are currently in progress and public IPs, and then a few others remaining around scale sets afterwards. Scale sets will be the last one. So I think, yeah, async public IPs and tags are here and they're being worked on, and we have PRs open already. So those are good. I don't know if anyone here is working on that one. Looks like it's assigned to someone. Node image upgrades. Does anyone know anything about that? Looks like it's rotten. Okay, I will unassign this one. Yeah, okay. So I don't know if anyone wants to work on that. Looks like it's open for grabs. Zane, I saw you on the call. Are you here? Do you know where this one's at?
Yeah, it's just me being lazy. Like I have the commit in my fork for that. I just need to attest, and I hope this can be done definitely before July 6th. Yeah.
Okay, awesome, thanks. Okay, and then we have the last one, which is documenting our release cadence based on this new approach. I think Bridget might help with that one. So, but if anyone else wants to get involved and help, please feel free to comment on the issue. Okay, so that's all we have right now. I know there are a few things also that are not in here that probably should be in here. I'm thinking of the workload identity, community galleries, all that stuff. So maybe we should just add those whenever whoever's working on the issue. And you just notice that something's not in here, please add it. Any questions for the milestone or the release or anything in between. All right, if not, I think I will stop sharing my screen. And then I will hand it off to you, Jack, if you want to go over test templates. Anyone who wants to stay for this, feel free to stay. If you need to drop off, this will be recorded, so feel free to drop off.
Okay, cool. Can I kindly have share screen? I guess host.
Yes, sorry.
Host perms.
Okay, you're good now.
Cool. Yep. Thank you so much. All right. So let's see. I'm going to try to share multiple screens just in case. No. Shift. Oh, cool. Shift.
Sorry, before you start sharing, actually, just a little announcement PSA that we just someone added at the bottom that I almost forgot. Just wanted to say thank you, Shyam, for all the hard work. Shyam is stepping down as maintainer. He's taking a new opportunity outside of his current company, so he won't be actively maintaining CAPZ anymore. And then I also want to say welcome, Jack, for as a CAPZ maintainer. Jack just recently got added from reviewer to maintainers. We're super excited to have him join the maintainer group. And yeah, thanks for all the hard work, Jack.
Yeah, big shoes to fill all around. I'll do my best.
Yeah, and thanks to Sam for teaching me CAPZ. So.
Okay, cool. Let's see. I'm going to share. So if I Alt Tab Safari, VS Code, and Terminal, we've got it all. Cool. All right. So I'll start with VS Code. So yeah, Ashutosh, you asked about how all of there's a lot of templates and a lot of like different types of templates under subdirectories. How do they all relate to one another? Like I think specifically you were observing that we've got a similar. So if we think about external cloud provider, for example, here's one under test CI, and then here is one under simply under templates. And how does this all work? So I think the easiest way to sort of introduce what's going on here is to think of everything under templates as being organized according to like a sort of I don't know, front end view layer. So go ahead, Cecile.
Sorry to interrupt, Jack. Are you sharing the right window? Because we're seeing test infra right now. You need to share CAPZ.
I am not, I guess. Let's see here. Okay, sorry. Looks like I got to start all over again. Okay, that's definitely. Okay, I think I see what's going on. I mistook a file name that started with Cluster API Provider Azure with the repo. Okay, how is this for CAPZ file structure?
Good.
Yep.
Okay, great, cool. Thank you, Cecile. So the way that I think about it, and this is maybe my bias because I have done some front end development in the past, is that these are there are three sort of rendered templates. One is under templates, and it's these directories, these files in this flat structure directly under the templates directory. So all of these YAML files that I'm selecting here, and all of these under test CI, and I believe the same for dev. There might be more that I'm not even aware of, but these are rendered templates that derive from a set of partials, for lack of a better term, that we organize and decompose and then put back together at the end using a script called gen flavors. So the low level details are are in this script, and they rely on a tool called Customize. And I think secondarily, msubs may be involved here. Although maybe msubs is only involved with cluster CTL, so maybe it's just Customize. But what Customize is a general purpose tool. I'm not sure if there's like a canonical project that it was built for. Whoops, I'm in the wrong directory. But it allows you to decompose all of these files in ways like this, where we have, so we've got like sort of high level categories. I'm going to move my chat window over so I notice that someone chatted, just in case someone's asking a question. Customize is part of SIG CLI. Okay, cool. So we've got these high level categories like add-ons, and these are all essentially like sections of what we want to inject into an overall template. So if it's not clear, by default, we are using in our tests a single YAML file, which is basically all inclusive of everything in the cluster. And so if you look at one of these, here's the AD template. You can see a cluster, Azure cluster, KubeADM control plane, so on and on and on. This is not the only way that you can create a CAPZ cluster. You could organize this with one YAML file per resource, and you could set up your test implementation to be able to just do the equivalent kubectl apply through an enumerated set of those. But as you can imagine, that's a little bit more complicated. So the way that we have organized this is to move that like sort of per resource cluster definition burden into the way that we manage these flavors. So we've got like, I'm gonna demonstrate something I've been looking at recently. So under add-ons Calico, I don't want to go too deep into Customize, but you can sort of see here that we have, is this a single resource? No, there's a few resources here, but these are Calico specific resources. And so if this is going to be applied to basically every template right now. Oh, I'm in the wrong branch. Let me go to main. Okay, so this is gonna basically be applied to every template. So if I go to the default template, I'm not seeing it there. Where's the Calico? Oh, okay. It's a little. I've got back myself into a corner. So there is a little bit more that we do with cluster resource set. So I'm going to demonstrate something else because I don't want to confuse folks. Let's see here. I'm going to skip over add-ons. All right. So I'm going to look at dual stack. So in dual stack, we have this ability to basically do strategic merges of various resource types. So here this is by convention. If you're not familiar with this, you'll just have to trust me. But this is typically the name that we give to our first machine deployment. We give it an index 0. So what we're doing here in dual stack is we're essentially defining something that has a set of differences, and then Customize will then, with declarative config, do a strategic merge. So maybe not that one, but all of these are, I feel like I'm talking too fast. All of these are going to be basically overlaid on top of the existing, say, resource definition. So we've got a cluster definition here, an Azure cluster definition, and this allows us to override very specific sections. So in the dual stack situation, this is really the stuff that we care about. And so we want to essentially take our default cluster spec, which maybe I can find easily. Yeah, here we go. So let's say this is a kind of generic foundation for how we define a cluster. And then in the dual stack, where did I find that? Here we go. We're essentially going to overlay this on top of this. And what it'll do is it'll replace this base CIDR block definition with the dual stack specific one. And then if we look at the outcome of all that, kind cluster, we will see that the rendered dual stack template has the CIDR block. That's as much detail as I want to go into for an overview. But but the key sort of high level concept is that we organize all of these sort of subcomponents of each template like this into the sort of functional, like into these functional organizational directories. And then we use customize to put them back together. And then we do all of the actual rendering with this script. Does anyone have any specific questions? Because I'm going super fast and providing a ton of information. This is a really complicated.
So one thing, just to confirm, like this YAMLs that we see in the templates, like cluster template aad.yaml.
Yep.
All those are like generated. So if I write those customized patches or the overlays, and I do make generate, those YAMLs will come up.
That's right. So from a maintenance standpoint, the first thing that you have to internalize is that when you want to move, if you want to move this forward, if you want a /24 instead of a /16, you can't just do it here. So
yep.
If I'll do that, and then this is actually going to take a long time. So you can see up here that my diff suggests that I've changed the YAML from the /16 to /24. I'll let that run in the background. So what you actually want to do is there's a little bit of detective work that goes into it, but hopefully these have been organized in a sane way where the patterns sort of become clear fairly quickly. So you can see under here we have this flavors directory, and so this is by convention. I think we inherited this from CAPI via cluster CTL. You can sort of reverse engineer these rendered templates. So you see all of them start with a substring prefix cluster dash template. I think that fulfills a cluster CTL sort of standard. So that way you can do a cluster CTL gesture and just refer to the flavor, and it'll look for a file called cluster dash template dash with the flavor name. So under flavors for AAD, there's an AAD directory. So we can assume that that's where we would actually maintain this. So the kind of basic initialization file is customization.yaml. And so this is this will tell us where all of the partials are derived and how they're composed into a rendered outcome. So you can see that this is relying on that that base set of definitions, and then we're adding to it a machine deployment in the current working directory. You can see that here, and we are then telling it to take this YAML partial and this YAML partial and strategically merge it on top of essentially the outcome. So the sort of hierarchy is like, this is your sort of foundational set of things that need, and there are some assumptions that you need to organize this in a way where there aren't collisions that are going to produce unpredictable results. And then if we go patches, Kubanian control plane, this is a bunch of stuff that's going to be overlaid on top of, and it's by kind, on top of any existing kind Kubanian control plane with this name that it's going to find. Yeah, anyway, let's go look back here. So this is finished. So now if I go do a git diff, so now we have this sort of classic scenario where, you know, this is a common thing that you'll see across different projects where you think you're updating the thing, but actually CI then overwrites it because the thing you updated is generated code that's not meant to be modified directly. So if we wanted to do this correctly, let's do a little detective work here. So we are updating the CIDR block. So if we go to, I'm going to go to base first of all. And so ./base, cluster template. Cool. So I'm going to change this to a 24. And so at this point, if I do a diff, I see that the YAML under that flavors/base/cluster template.yaml has been updated. And I will now do a make generate flavors. So this should hopefully give you a taste of the complexity here, because this is a super simple change. And there's all kinds of things. And even this AAD definition is relatively simple. If you do a little investigation, you'll see some that are super complex. So Sylvia, you're saying something? No, okay, sorry. Someone saying something?
You're gonna end up with a lot of changes there.
By simply updating that base.
Oh, yeah.
The base is used everywhere.
Oh, good call. Well, I'm glad that I accidentally stumbled into that, because that's a really important thing to demonstrate. So this is this is a challenge for work streams like I'm working on, where say I want to change something that exists everywhere in 50% of the templates. So that requires a kind of like a more abstract refactoring of the way all this has been organized. So I can't, if I want to change something that currently relies on base and apply it to say 50% of the templates, that means I need to figure out a way to like unwind all that foundational stuff and build like another foundational template that only serves 50% of the templates. If that makes sense. So yeah, git diffs should be super interesting right now. Let's see. There we go. As predicted. So do folks understand why this had, I was just like kind of steamrolling through this, and why this had way larger side effects than I was intending?
Yep.
Cool. So actually, since we've got some time, let's do this the right way. So I'm going to undo this, and let's see if we can do this live. Okay, so what I would want to do, again, where are we in this? We're on the cluster. Okay, cool. So what do we have here? Machine deployment. Where would you put this, in patches? Would you put it in patches?
Maybe
Just start there. There's no right answer. As with any project like this, a big part of keeping this organized is all agreeing as a community to sort of hold to some standard. So let me call this cluster.yaml, and I'll refer to this. I'm going to keep the strategic merge, cluster.yaml, and let me go up to base and just copy paste this for now. I don't know if we want yeah, we don't need those 3 lines for a single resource. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to include the minimum amount of information needed to make this change, which means I'm going to, whoops, not that. I'm going to get rid of all this because I don't want to change any of this. And I don't want to change this. So is this the minimum amount of information to do a successful strategic merge? Do you think, Cecile?
Yeah, I think so. That looks good.
Okay, cool. Does this make sense what I'm doing?
yes.
Folks?
Yep, makes sense.
Cool, cool. All right, let's give it a shot. Sorry about the delay in this. I could actually probably just comment out this wget to save us some time, but
Yeah, we technically don't need it anymore because Calico just updated their repo to have the fully generated templates now. But I was waiting for the home chart since we're getting rid of it anyways. But if
Yeah.
we want to speed up our experience for the next few weeks, we could just get rid of it.
hopefully it won't take a few weeks, but we'll see. So I've been leaning into this is super complicated part of the equation. It's also really powerful. So the reason there are good reasons why SIG CLI created customized, and there are good reasons why we organize our templates this way. If you do this sane and in a well-ordered way, then this is a great way to organize all these different templates and make maintenance easier going forward. But it's just something we need to be aware of. It also is very easy to make this too complicated. All right, there we go. So we've got this net new file in our git diff, and we have overridden the base template under template/cluster80.yaml with the new value. So this is the sort of the muscle that we exert over and over again as we modify these templates. Does that kind of, is that enough to sort of
Yeah. So
cool.
so my question was like, if you go to the templates directory So I was more coming from the CI perspective. Let's say I want to write an E2E,
Yep.
like you did for external cloud provider. And if you go to the test directory, right, inside the test, in the CI, we again have the CI version and the pro external cloud provider CI version, the directory.
Yep. Okay. Great question. So this is a little opaque. So what I've been modifying are and hopefully this is documented in a sane way. What I've been modifying are the set of templates that we provide as a reference for users to introspect and hopefully reuse in useful ways on their own clusters. So these templates are not actually input for any of our tests. So this change that I've made here isn't actually going to affect any of the tests. So if the goal, one would do this if there were a good reason to update the reference templates, but by convention, there's not quite a one-to-one mapping because as you can see under test, so really quickly, under test CI are the set of templates that we actually test using our end-to-end test runner. Is that a correct statement, Cecile, or is that like only partially correct?
No, that's correct. The flavors are the one we publish as release artifacts. The Prow CI ones are the ones that we use in Prow to test stuff. Usually we want the CI templates to be based on the templates we publish with just a few additions around tags that allow us to do automated cleanup. That was the beginning. Now it's diverged a little bit where sometimes we want to test a specific combination of features. And so the resulting template is like kind of unique and not really the same as any template we publish.
Yeah, I would echo that the aspiration would be for the difference between all these templates in test/CI and under just templates is only the set of changes that are needed to sort of inform end-to-end test functionality, but that functionally they're equivalent. So that way that all of these templates that we're sharing as references for our user community are actually tested. But we're not quite, the aspiration isn't quite realized. Like for example, this AED template that we have a reference for, we don't actually test. So we can have a discussion about what we would want to do about that. Like, should we clean up that reference template because we actually don't know that it works? Or should we add an additional test scenario here so that we can make sure that we're backing all of our reference templates with known working test signal? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So again, like there are two different external cloud provider YAMLs. Like one is provider-CI and one is start YAML. So why these two things exist there? Like,
yeah, great question. Let's quickly, I think the easiest way to sort of talk about that would be to diff them. So let me diff the two. Hopefully they're, I think they probably derive, I think they derive from common foundations. So the diff should sort of tell the story. Okay, cool. So on the left, we have the external cloud provider, and on the right, we have external cloud providers -CI-version. So I think these changes are somewhat non-purposeful. So I don't know about why the one on the right has container log or CSV. No, so you're gonna.
Yeah, I think that reflects that the one on the right has Windows, probably. Has a window.
I see. Okay. Cool. So, but the key difference is going to be in this big blob that's on the right here. So -CI-version is that's the way that we've named a few of our templates to indicate that we are going to build. I think we're using these templates to scaffold clusters that are using arbitrarily built bits of Kubernetes. Is that right? So all of this foo inside this this green section on the right column is foo that we have developed to ensure that kubeadm has knowledge of how to sort of like rationalize the Kubernetes version aspect of these arbitrarily built bits. So there's a bunch of foo in there. And so this is actually the command that runs that foo. So this is like essentially a payload that we're delivering via cloud init. And this is where we're telling kubeadm to execute that as a shell script. Does this make sense what I'm saying?
I see.
So to answer your question, the difference between these two is that the sort of vanilla external cloud provider template is the template that we maintain that creates a cluster that can accommodate out-of-tree cloud provider. So I say can accommodate because it doesn't actually install the out-of-tree cloud provider. We now use Helm to do that. So the reason we have a separate template for that is because we don't want to, well, there are a few configuration changes that essentially tell, like if I don't know if it's gonna, oh, here we go, like this right here. So we need a separate template to declare these configurations to the control plane components. And then the CI version suffixed template is one that has these external cloud provider declarations here. Plus, it has all of the known working, the way that we have integrated all of our tests to scaffold clusters that can run arbitrary bits of Kubernetes. So from a dev point of view, what this one on the right fulfills is it helps the folks maintaining the cloud provider Azure bits as they move forward to test their code against head. Well, actually, to test their code against Kubernetes at head. So as Kubernetes moves forward, we can wire up end-to-end solutions that build arbitrary bits of Kubernetes and then use well-known environment variables to refer to those URLs, and then this foo will tie it all together. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, and again, these templates are generated using customize. If I see the directories above in the test.
Yeah, do you want to look at how this is all put together?
Yeah, like I can.
Let me close this. I mean, I think the answer to your question is definitely yes, because that's just how we put together all these templates.
Sure.
So
Sure.
if we go, go ahead.
Go ahead, no, that's okay.
Okay, cool. So if we go under test CI, you can see we've got two of these, so we can actually diff these again. So here's my vanilla one. I like for compare selected. So the one on the right wins the battle. It's so much simpler. Oh no, maybe I'm not reading the diff right. Yeah, this one is super simple. So not sure why this one is so simple. Maybe this was developed like after. But yeah, these are completely different. So actually to go into detail about them would take some time. So it looks like maybe this is offloading some of the complexity to here. So this is probably, okay, so this is, yeah, here's the complexity. So the reason I followed that is that this is a way to sort of easily fork and just slightly mutate an existing template. So it's referring to this. So if I go one directory down and then under Prow CI version, if you give it a directory, then it's essentially going to render the outcome of this. So this has all this crazy complexity.
I see.
And then in addition to that, we have an external cloud provider YAML spec that we are doing a strategic merge on top of what's that. And so if we go 3 directories down to flavors, external cloud provider, patches. So this is the interesting sort of reusable stuff that configures the control plane. So this is where we, this is the kind of old way of doing things that uses the cluster resource set, but we've still got that there. So that's not super meaningful. The really meaningful stuff is under here. So this kubeadm control plane configuration needs to be different for out-of-tree cloud provider. So, you know, specifically we need this, we need this, we need this, we need this. I don't actually think we could probably remove this and it would probably be equivalent, because I suspect the base, like in-tree cloud kubeadm control plane already includes this, but. And
Awesome.
The same thing for this kubeadm config template. Go ahead.
Yeah. So let's say, for example, if somebody has to write a new E2E test that want to use a different flavor that does not exist. So you go to the CI directory and put your own custom YAMLs that would actually use the base Pro or the CI version and would generate these templates. And then finally it can be used in your ETU testing.
That's right. I mean, I could, just for fun, we can actually do that really quickly. So I could, since this one is sort of easy, I'm going to just fork this one. And I'll call this super cool cloud provider CI version. And all I need to do this is I'm going to create a new patch just under this directory. Patches, and I'm going to call it super cool. Actually, I'll just call it kubeadm.yaml. And under here, what I can do is move these two things here. And just because I was saying earlier, I'll get rid of that. I don't want to change that. But now I'm not using the external cloud provider. I'm using the super cool cloud provider. Get rid of that. And if is this all? I'm not sure. Is this all I need to do? I think so. I can't remember if there's any extra accounting that I need to do for this new template, but let's just see what happens.